So, Adrian, in my, cacophony of just fun fact finding, I learned something today really not interesting. It's kind of cool. Do you know there's a sentence, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog? Did you know that uses every single one of the letters in the English language?
100% I knew that, yeah.
Oh, alrighty. Well, Adrian did his research first.
Well, whenever you go to a font website, that's the font that it's displayed in because of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I guess I don't go to enough font websites. I just trust whatever Google has in store for me. But hello everyone, welcome back to the Drive Back Podcast. My name is Garrett,
And I'm Adrian.
and today we've got a franchise fever, which we haven't had for quite a while. Adrian, what is a franchise fever?
Franchise Fever is where we watch all the movies in a franchise. Franchise is qualified as more than 2 movies in a series. So anything with more than 2 counts as a franchise, but National Treasure does not.
That is absolutely right. Well, not yet. It is have a third movie in development and a series, so we'll see what happens. But today we're going to be covering the Oceans movies, particularly Oceans 11, Oceans Oceans 12, 13, and 8. So,
Specifically, not as forget all the other ones.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna get real tired of saying ocean today, so I'm trying to cut it out as much as possible. But we got 5 movies to get through, so let's go ahead and just jump right in to the first one, and we are including the first movie, the original from 1960, in this list because it's essentially the same sort of characters and storyline, as the first movie with George Clooney. So we're just gonna go ahead and throw it in because when else are we gonna take a look at this movie? But that being said, the first film is Ocean's 11. Released in 1960, it was directed by Louis Milestone and stars Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. Danny Ocean gathers a group of his World War II compatriots to pull off the ultimate Las Vegas heist. Together, the 11 friends plan to rob 5 Las Vegas casinos in one night. This was my first time seeing this movie. I don't know if you had seen the original before.
No, I had not.
So this
First
is
time for me as well.
both of our first times. What did you think about this movie in particular?
I don't really know how this holds up, like, in critic responses, but I found it pretty dated. I thought it was cool, obviously, like the cool factor of having the Rat Pack in a movie and all that. And I found some of the scenes pretty cool, but I thought it relied a lot on just the presence of the Rat Pack. And I felt that it was a lot more violent than the others, which I'm not so much a fan of. I think I like the more espionage side of it than like the full-blown, like, let's just shut the power off and beat up all these people and take the money. So I thought, I think it's just a little dated in terms of kind of what we have come to know and love from the new series.
Sure, I definitely agree. I think that it is going on the novelty that all these singers are acting in this movie. But God, this movie's boring.
Yeah,
this is not nearly as fun as the other 4 movies in this list.
No, they rely on all of them being on screen as like enough to tide you over for these long conversation pieces.
Yeah, and it's like you have the 3 main actors. You've got Frank, Dean, and Sammy. Everyone else just kind of fades into the background. It doesn't feel like Ocean's 11. Here's Ocean's 3, and then also there's 8 other guys.
Zero character development from the other 8. Like
even
there's like the little stuff of like, the only reason I'm on this job is because like I wanted to talk to you, and it's like, who are you?
Or like, I want to pay for my kid because I was in Japan, but I wasn't in Japan. I was in jail. Like,
yes, it's just not enough.
It's weird. And also, before we get into spoilers, I used to love the song "Ain't It a Kick in the Head," but god damn, this movie just beats it into you, and it is so annoying. And I can't listen to it after watching this, at least for a couple weeks.
When I saw the credits roll, I was shocked to see other songs featured on the soundtrack because it was just so much.
But that being said, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of spoilers. If you want to watch any of the 5 movies, so I don't have to repeat myself, all these movies are available to rent only. You have to go through Amazon Prime to do them, which I wish we would have known before I watched all of these. But let's go ahead and dive into the spoilers for Ocean's 11 from 1960. And that's really the main thing to talk about. This movie's boring. It just... It's not
Yeah,
exciting.
I mean, it's actually, and not much happens.
Yeah.
I think even like when the big moments are happening, it's pretty lackluster. Like you could find yourself zoning out and look back and realize that they've already robbed 5 casinos.
Yeah.
Like it just happens really boring
Mm-hmm.
and like super passively. So yeah, just I think boring is the word. There was a couple moments I appreciated. Like of course I've read up on that the final scene is like iconic of all the men walking past the billboard with the Rat Pack names on it. Like I've read on that stuff, but again, I think that's just more for the people that, like you said, the novelty of it. Like I don't think that holds up for a first time view in 2022.
It really doesn't, and I think they could have played into it a little bit more. And obviously, it's called Ocean's 11, but like if it was actually Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. playing themselves robbing the casinos, that would have been more interesting. But it's just
That would have had that staying power I think they were looking for of
Yeah.
like, oh, you could just watch it and it's amazing.
yeah. And I think this movie, it is a product of its time because I believe this was still during the era of the Hays Code, which dictated like it was like about decency in film and television, right? And a part of that was the bad guys couldn't win. Like you can't get away with crime.
Interesting.
So they literally
Yeah,
don't
okay.
get away with it in the end because the money
They lose it, yeah.
is lost. And that really makes the ending not good because like, with the later 4 films, the fun part is seeing how they did it in real time and how they got away with it. Not really worrying about how they're going to fence everything and actually sell
No, but
stuff.
the whole point is like the whole point of the Oceans series in my book is that you are rooting because they're almost the anti-heroes. Like they're not all bad. There's like, but they have this goal, and you want them to get away with it. It builds up that motif of, oh, like yes, I want to watch they did it. And can you imagine if in the later films, after like all the wire work and Mission Impossible stuff, if they just didn't get it,
Yeah.
you'd be like, okay, why did I just watch this movie?
Oh, all the money got burnt away in the the old crematorium. And it's like, no, why did we just wait?
And that can work if that is the premise built up from the beginning. There are movies where they don't win, but it's set up for that's the better ending.
Yeah.
This movie is not set up that way. The better ending is if they win, and they don't in the end, and it's a real bummer.
You just really have to have good writing if you're going to do an ending like that. And here, it really falls flat, and it taints the whole film, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think even if you're somewhat excited, which I would doubt that you would be in 2022 watching this, but if you're somewhat into it, the ending will yank you right out of this movie. Like, oh, and then we're done. Okay, cool.
To be fair, I was yanked out of this movie. Like the later 4 films do a really good job of showing all the setup and all the things that go into the heist. This one,
Planning, the map work, each person having a role, like all the stuff.
yeah, this one kind of does that, but it doesn't do it interesting.
It's literally just them talking the whole time.
Yeah, or just Dean Martin singing "Ain't That a Kick in the Head," which that gets really annoying after a while. But yeah, I mean, I really don't have any much to say about this. Like, I'm glad that I watched it. I am certainly glad that I actually took the time to watch it because I love. Well, spoiler alert, I love the next movie, and this was kind of cool to see where this one came from. And there are some references to this film a little bit later on. One particular one, which we'll get to when we talk about Ocean's 13.
Okay.
But I mean, I got really nothing else to say.
No, yeah, I think it's boring. My final thoughts, I guess, on this one will be just that I find that it doesn't hold up. Like I said, I think you're really going to find yourself, if you've seen any other of the Oceans, you're going to find yourself pining for more from this movie, and it just doesn't have any to give. The gimmick is watching the Rat Pack plan and rob casinos, and it just isn't enough. It doesn't have the staying power or the star power that I think they thought it would. And I think it's just, pretty boring overall. So I give this movie a 45.
45, wow. For my final thought, I said Ocean's 11 is a boring, plain, and altogether average film for its time, which does not add up to a whole lot now. And unfortunately, the Hays Code prevents the main characters from succeeding. So, in all total, I gave it a 42. So we're pretty close, which has happened not so frequently lately. But since we got 5 movies to get to, let's go ahead and do the old Rotten Tomatoes score check for the original Ocean's 11. Adrian, what do you think the critic score rating is on Rotten Tomatoes for Ocean's 11? You're thinking 78 for the critics rating. You were quite a ways off. It is 48%.
Oh, they were more in line with what we thought.
So they're a little more in line with us. The critics' consensus says it's easygoing but lazy. Ocean's 11 blithely coasts on the well-established rapport of the Rat Pack royalty, which we pretty much said. But can you guess the audience score for Ocean's 11?
65.
A little off again, 81%. So the audience really enjoyed this movie.
That's fake.
Probably. It's just people pouring over from all the poor reviews for She-Hulk and all that. And they're like, oh, I hate it on this. I gotta find something obscure and like it. But for bonus points, can you guess the Ocean's 11 from 1960 Metacritic rating?
63.
You're a lot closer. It's 57.
I'll take it.
So a little bit of some interesting scores there from the internet. But, as we know, we're the only ones that are correct in this whole world. Anyhow, let's go ahead and move on to Ocean's 11. No, not the one we just talked about. The first one with George Clooney. Released in 2001, it was directed by Steven Soderbergh and stars George Clooney, Matt Damon, and Brad Pitt. Danny Ocean and his 10 accomplices plan to rob 3 Las Vegas casinos simultaneously. Which I'm already going to abate everyone that says, oh, well, in the first movie they robbed 5. You can't rob 5 casinos nowadays. It's way harder. I'm fine with the 3 they did. Anyhow, I'll go first for the spoiler-free thoughts. This is one of my favorite movies. I love this movie. I love the characters. I love the story. I love the editing and the pacing, and the music is fantastic. I think this is a masterwork in how you do a heist film in a way that keeps everyone engaged the entire time. But I am curious to see what you have to say about Ocean's 11.
And I'll take it from here. I think this is a near perfect movie. I've seen it a bunch of times. The other 2, I would say, in the trilogy, less, but also multiple times. But this one, I think, is just near perfect. You can find things that are iffy with it and a little dated, especially now that technology's advanced and some of it's a bit off, but overall, like, the style that this movie brings, the swagger that all the characters have, it oozes charisma. It's just a really good movie.
Completely agree. But let's go ahead and drop the spoiler warning for Ocean's 11. And I gotta say, if you're watching the video of this, you probably just saw me react a moment ago while Adrian was talking. It was not about what you said. It's actually about the last movie. The fact that there's some really bad racist humor in there.
In a later film.
And there's literally, they use blackface in the movie. I just remembered that too. Anyhow, we're putting it on, and he's like, "How do you get this off, Sammy?" And he's like, "Oh." It's so bad. Anyhow,
super bad taste.
On to the good one. This movie is, like you said, it's near perfect. It's so good. The characters, every single one of the 11 characters gets their time in the sun.
And full character arcs as well. I actually found myself on the rewatch thinking, oddly enough, about Paddington 2. That how well of a job it did at giving even the minor characters their moment in the sun. Like, everyone had a small arc. And I really found that this movie did the exact same thing. Every single person that has a line seems to have some sort of arc in this movie. Some sort of growth, some sort of drawback. Like, it's all there. And it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's fantastically done. It's well thought out. It's well executed. Steven Soderbergh does a great job. And I'll go ahead and just say now, Soderbergh does a great job through all 3 of the movies that he did.
The style is persistent, and it's really good.
Yes, and this is the one where I think it's the most dialed in. And I think it's because of the setting. It just feels much more, authentic.
I did
especially
read
since the last one.
I did read an interview with him where he said that it was actually the most difficult part of shooting the movie was making it feel casual, which is like all the camera whips back and forth, like all that stuff. It just really, it's like, and that's what it takes though, to have that kind of iconic look or that feel that this movie does. It takes effort. It's not because it's just a casual shoot. It's because everything is specifically designed to feel good and to feel fun and lighthearted.
Yeah, absolutely, and it really does. And again, spoiler alert, they get away with it. And it's
awesome.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
The moment when Brad Pitt flips up the visor while they're walking through the casino floor, I've seen this movie so many times, and I still go, oh yeah, way to go! Just so well done.
And I absolutely love the final moment. Obviously, it's across all three of these, but the fountain scene where because you can't talk about what you just did, but you all know that you got away with it. So it's just this silent, one by one leaving until it's typically just the two, and it's just it's so good. I just think that is the moment because you're with them as the audience. They give you as the audience this moment to revel in everything you just saw.
Yep.
And it worked. It all paid off, and you're sitting there, and you walk away one by one too. You're first, the camera's with them all there, and then eventually you're behind them. You step away, and then you watch them all leave. And it's a really powerful moment that I don't think is replicated in any other film quite like this, any other heist film at least.
Yeah.
To this extent.
I would say even not anything like the other movies in this franchise. I think it does have the best ending moment. And also, just we'll get into this more as we talk in the later films, except for Ocean's 8. Ocean's 8 and Ocean's 11 are the only ones where they're actually doing it for themselves. They're doing it to steal money for themselves, which is really nice. And we'll get more into that later.
Or to get at the bad guy, right? They want to do something.
Well, all of them, they kind of get at a bad guy, but they're actually getting the money for themselves at this point.
Yeah.
It's
a great movie.
I really don't want to spoil a lot of this movie just because it is so good. And if you haven't seen this movie, what are you doing? It is seriously that good. But we'll lead right into some final thoughts, which I went first this time. So I did say Ocean's 11 is a masterwork in heist film creation. Its music, characters, pacing, and incredible editing make it one of my favorite films in the genre and a must-watch. I give the movie a 97.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. I think this movie is near perfect. Certainly one of my favorites in the catalog for people that haven't seen it. I love to show them this movie. I've shown a lot of people this movie for the first time over the years. It typically starts them on the main trilogy. Last time I showed someone this, 8 wasn't out, I don't think, and I definitely hadn't watched the first one, but maybe that's a new recommendation. I doubt it. I'd probably recommend the core trilogy out of everything. Spoiler alert on my thoughts, I guess. But this one definitely is a great kickoff, send-off to the trilogy, and I gave this movie a 99.
Wow, all right. We are sticking together on a lot of these so far. We'll see if that holds up. But let's go ahead and jump into the Rotten Tomatoes score check for Ocean's 11. What do you think the critics gave Ocean's 11?
93.
Well, you got one letter correct, or one letter. You got one number correct. It is an 83% from critics.
Okay, that's fair.
Critics said as fast-paced, witty, and entertaining as it is star-studded and coolly stylish, Ocean's 11 offers a well-seasoned serving of popcorn entertainment. Which, I think it's a little bit more than popcorn entertainment, but sure. And what do you think the audience score is for Ocean's 11?
Typically higher. I'll stick with 93. We'll go with that.
You're actually in the wrong direction. They have an 80 from fans. So the critics did give it a little... well, there you go. That's what I say every single time.
That's actually super interesting, because this is one of the only cases that 2 for 2 so far, the critics have given a higher score. Right? Mm-hmm. Than the act... Yeah. Interesting.
Well, which is really interesting because, not always are the critics higher or much lower. A lot of the times it can be right in the middle. But it's really interesting because I think a lot of that audience reaction came out when the film did, and it wasn't it wasn't like, oh my god, Ocean's 11 back in when it first came out. It really took home viewing and stuff to watch it and appreciate it. So that could definitely be a reason, which we kind of see on Metacritic. What do you think the critic score is on Metacritic?
I kind of just want to stick with my scores here, but I'm going to go with 77.
God, you're close. 74.
Wow, I feel good about it. Okay.
But it is interesting because the audience score on Metacritic is an 8.6. So you can see that it is higher than Rotten Tomatoes. So it may have been later viewings, but, hey, it's there. That is going to be it for Ocean's 11. Moving on to Ocean's 12. Released in 2004, it was directed by Steven Soderbergh and stars George Clooney, Matt Damon, and Brad Pitt. Daniel Ocean recruits one more team member so he can pull off 3 major European heists in this sequel to Ocean's 11. I guess you want to go ahead and start out for Ocean's 12?
Sure, yeah. I think we should stick with not spoiling the plot points, because I think all of them have some really neat ones that
a lot of good twists.
Good twists, and like that's not fun to spoil, but I think this one does a lot in service of the first one. I think it's got a great continuing plot narrative. I think there's a weird thing with Julia Roberts' character that I wasn't quite able to wrap my head around on this time watching. That was just interesting. But yeah, I think it's a worthy successor. I like the 12. Like, I liked the idea of adding a 12th person. Like, I think that was just kind of a fun sequel idea that really kind of set the stage, obviously. Spoiler alert for Ocean's 13. But yeah, I just think it's really fun. I think it's a great successor. Not quite as good all the way around, but still worthy.
Yeah, I think I'm going to kind of bite myself for saying this later. I think taking it away from Vegas in this one is doesn't really do it good. I think, the story would have it be something here in the States, but I don't think that it goes that route. I think it's definitely a fun movie. Yeah. I think of the 3 in the core trilogy, I think it's the least of the 3.
Go ahead.
But we'll dive more into that when we get into spoilers. Not major plot points or anything, but at least we can talk about it a little bit more there. So, but let's go ahead, drop the spoiler warning for Ocean's 12. We're not going to spoil major twists or anything, but I do want to point out what I really love in this movie is Vincent Cassel's thief character.
Yeah, very fun.
A lot of fun. I love having him in the films. But yeah, just this one to me, it's still good. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't quite hold the candle to the. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Any of the 4.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's the weakest. I still hold that it's a worthy successor. I think it's tough to follow up such a great act. Yeah. And I think by doing something like what you kind of talked about, that yes, it kind of sucks that they moved away from Vegas, but it had to be different. Had they released a Vegas movie back to back, people would have just complained the opposite, that it's the same movie with an extra person.
Very true.
So I totally get the move, and I actually, once I got over that in the beginning and I kind of realized that, it kind of let me let go of that while watching, and I was able to, I feel, have quite a bit of fun with it. By no means is it a bad movie, but yeah, I agree. I think the Vegas setting is just so hard to beat in a film with, again, so much charisma, sass, and witty conversation and bright lights and stuff. It's hard to beat. It doesn't beat it. And it's kind of where it is. It doesn't fall quite in the middle, but definitely not quite as good.
Yeah, I think it's nice to have a foil for them in the form of Catherine Zeta-Jones, her Interpol agent or whatever organization she's from. It was some Euro organization. But I have to say, I didn't like how I guess this will be a spoiler. So if you really don't want to know anything, skip forward a couple seconds. I don't like how a lot of the people are taken into prison and we don't see them for a while.
I actually didn't even realize that was happening until it had been a bit, and then I was like, wait, we haven't seen that. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. Maybe it was scheduling or something. I don't know, but...
it could have been. It could have been a production thing. I didn't even think about that. I thought it was just a bad script on that part, but...
Maybe.
Yeah.
But do you know, quick question of the day, do you know who the 12th member is?
Do I know who the 12th member is?
Yeah, because it's Ocean's 12 this time around.
Like, do I know who plays them?
Yeah.
No.
So you have the core 11 people. They're all in the movie. But who's the 12th one?
I don't remember.
It's Julia Roberts. Because they actually have to call her.
That's what I was going to say. Yes, that's what I was going to say. So I don't like that she had to do this, like, weird
meta
thing
bit?
Yeah, like, that was what I was talking about. I guess she was the 12th member. But I don't consider her one. So that's because I thought her character was so odd that she had to do, the meta bit of, like, Julia Roberts. I forget her character name. Being Julia Roberts.
Tess.
Yeah, I thought that was super, super strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It pulled me right out of the movie completely. That was it. I like
That's
literally
so
when it was happening, I just really, really did not like it, and it actually kind of ruined who she was in the first one, because I thought in the first one they had a lot of that like witty banter back and forth with George Clooney, and I felt like this one it seemed the obvious choice, I guess.
There was a little bit of that banter towards the end.
Yeah, but like the whole movie felt lacking of that like brooding, witty battle of romance that the first one had so much of, that I think really drove the plot in that aspect. This one, her being the 12th man does not sit right with me, but her being included just really felt weird, and yeah, I don't know. It was an odd choice, but I do like, again, the idea of adding an extra person for each movie. Like, I think that's very, very fun. I think that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into what's going on in the next movie, because those some interesting inclusions there. But yeah, that's really all I got to say without like spoiling too many of the major plot points, which again, we don't really want to do. I think the whole trilogy, I'm going to say the whole quadrilogy, is definitely worth a watch kind of back to back, and you can kind of get the full experience. But let's go ahead and jump into some final thoughts for Ocean's 12. Mr. Adrian.
Is it me first? Yeah, I think this movie is a worthy successor. Like I said in the beginning, I think it's super, super fun. I think it does take a couple steps back and a couple weird choices. But I think it's still a really, really good second movie. So I give this movie an 80.
Wow, okay.
What did you...
I said Ocean's 12 doesn't really make the most out of its premise, but it does retain the level of fun, characters, and interactions that make the trilogy successful. And so with that, I give it a 71. So not too far off from you. But definitely the least of the three, or I'll say four. But let's go ahead and jump into Rotten Tomatoes again. What do you think the critic rating is for Ocean's 12?
I think it probably dropped pretty far. So I'm going to say 65.
You're a little high, 54%.
Little high. Dang. Brutal.
The critics said, while some have found the latest star-studded heist flick to be a fun, glossy star vehicle, others declare it's lazy, self-satisfied, and illogical. Wow. All right. What do you think of the audience gave the film?
Well, should I stick with the trend of it being lower? I'm going to go 58.
You're very close. It is a 60%.
Gosh darn it.
It's very hard to tell with these movies sometimes. That's why we do the bit. But can you tell me what the critic rating is for Metacritic?
Typically, I'm gonna go higher. I think because again, people have had more time to see it. That could be good or bad.
Critic rating, not audience.
I know.
Okay, I'm just throwing that out there.
But I think I'm gonna go 63.
You're very close. 58 is the score.
I just danced around all of them. Goodness gracious.
Alrighty. Let's move right along to Ocean's 13. Released in 2007, it was directed by Steven Soderbergh and stars George Clooney, Matt Damon, and Brad Pitt. Danny Ocean rounds up the boys for a third heist after casino owner Willie Bank double-crosses one of the original 11, Ruben Tishkoff. I'll go ahead and go first again. We return to the Strip in this movie. That's not much of a spoiler.
Which I think is a great choice.
I
thought it made sense.
I think this movie is better than the second one because of the entire premise of it, which we'll jump into as spoilers. And I think that this movie, it's the most bombastic of the three, I would say, which we'll get into again, or maybe not. We'll find out. But I also do think we also get one of the better villains of the entire franchise.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
That's all I'm going to say for spoiler free, Mr. Adrian.
Yeah, I think this movie is really fun. I think it's got a really killer cast and a great villain that we'll get into. I think probably one of them, a rival to the first in a lot of aspects to me in terms of just like the quality. And yeah, I thought, I think it's good. I agree. I think it's better than the second ones, which is what makes this trilogy so interesting to me. That they're all like right there in terms of quality for me. And again, the style persists. So if you like the first one, you'll probably like this one too. And yeah, just that's it. Spoiler free.
All right, dropping the spoiler warning for Ocean's 13.
Ending was killer to me on this one.
Yes.
At the airport, I thought it was so cool. I thought it was really, really fun. I wish, like, the selfish person in me really wanted it to be for them, and it just wasn't, and that's okay. But I thought it was still really fun.
I love the fact that this was a revenge heist. That, where it's really all about getting back at Al Pacino, who is a certifiable douchebag in this movie.
Great villain, though. Like, he makes
Super
you
fun.
hate him. He makes you be like, gosh, this guy sucks.
Gives poor Ruben a heart attack. But I also feel really bad for the critic. Who gets treated like absolute crap. I feel so bad. Luckily, he won $11 million at the end from his little jackpot. But man, like the bombasticness of this comes from the whole earthquake thing, which is
a bit,
that's a bit
far-fetched.
much. But I understand that's the way that the AI system would go down, and it would go into preservation mode. But the sequence when that goes down and everyone's just winning money after money after money is fantastic. I loved that.
Yeah, I love that they all the the heartbeat and we're good. I thought all that stuff was just super fun and just such an interesting technology play in the movie. I thought it was really interesting.
Oh yeah, which I think we're supposed to be getting technology like that at airports and stuff, so they can scan your iris
really
and
verify?
see who you are. Yeah,
we're really gonna get all that stuff. That's cool.
It was rumored to be in development a while ago, but
I haven't seen it yet, or they haven't caught me yet.
Well, be careful what you say there, bud. But yeah, I think this movie is a lot of fun. It's the biggest haul out of any of the movies. I think it was about 500 million is what the total.
With the jewels,
at least from the winnings.
Yeah, the jewels winnings are half of it or whatever. Yeah.
Well, the 500 million is just from people winning.
You're right, and then the jewels.
So
were
it's more than that.
The jewels were 260 or something like that.
And then the money he's going to lose because of the critic review, it's close to $1 billion at this point, and that's it's huge. And none of it went to them.
Yeah, which I thought was I was a little bummed because I feel like that's what it's you earned it, you did all this stuff, but I get the whole generosity thing, whatever. Yeah. But I did think that the standoff on top on the roof was really cool. I think that's just a really fun spectacle moment. I don't know what hotel that was actually filmed in, or if it was a real hotel.
I don't know.
But it's certainly stunning, and I would love to go up there because I think it's really cool to see Vegas just in the backdrop of this really high, intense moment that's really fascinating.
Also, this is the one thing I will spoil. The fact that... I forget the character's name, but Vincent Cassel's character shows up again, but then he's literally wearing an outfit painted like the stained glass he's in front of. So he just walks out this guy's so extra. I love it. Again, I feel like it's really hard to talk about the movie without spoiling it. So it's,
Francois.
That is absolutely right. Like the Black Fox or something like that is the name of the thief.
Yeah.
But, I don't really want to talk more about the plot points because I think it's got twists and turns that I don't want to spoil.
Yeah, I think this whole trilogy, I think the next one is a bit more of a standalone in a lot of aspects, but I did want to find out real quick before I say that, what was the callback to the first one that you were talking about?
Oh, so there's several moments when it's brought up that Al Pacino's character shook Sinatra's hand. Because Sinatra was Danny Ocean in the original.
Fascinating.
I mean, it is Vegas, but at the same time,
But I did watch them in a different order, so I guess I didn't realize that connection while watching 13.
There you go.
Interesting.
That's the only one I caught. There could have been more, but
yeah,
I'm sure there's some in the original or the first Ocean's movie.
Sure.
But that's all I really got to say about this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's go ahead and
I think it's worth watching. The whole trilogy is worth a full watch through if you haven't seen any of them.
Yeah, definitely, because you get the one cohesive kind of world and character
plot.
But real quick, do you know who the 12th and 13th members are in this movie?
One is Roman.
Yes.
The thief, Danny's friend.
Eddie Izzard, yeah.
Eddie Izzard, yeah. And then the other one, not off the top of my head.
The other one is Terry Benedict, the casino owner they robbed in the first one. Because he wants.
Was that the same guy?
Andy Garcia, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was a different actor. He's a member, but they something happens anyway. So
no spoilers.
Yeah, I can't say it. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into final thoughts. For me, I said Ocean's 13 returns to the strip, and we get more of the fun alongside a new fun villain and a different tone rather than just being about stealing. This time, it's personal. With that, I gave it a 77. Still not as strong as the first movie in the franchise, but a really good time regardless.
Yeah, I think this movie is definitely, again, kind of equal, but I definitely think it's a great bookend to the trilogy. I think it's got a lot of fun moments and a really good cast all the way around. And yeah, I give this movie a 75.
75. So you think 12 is better?
Well, I think it's better, like, standalone, but I think in the whole trilogy, I think this one definitely is like a bookend movie, which I always have a little bit of a hard time with. But so, like, I guess if you wanted me to rank them, it would be different than my actual independent scores.
Sure, definitely. Alrighty, well, that is it for Ocean's 13. Adrian, what is the Rotten Tomatoes critic score for Ocean's 13?
I feel like this one's going to be tough. I did not nail the last two. I'm going to go with... I'll ballpark at 80.
A little high. It is a 70%.
Okay, I don't feel terrible in my guess.
They said that Ocean's 13 reverts to the formula of the first installment, and the result is another slick and entertaining heist film. What do you think the audience score is for Ocean's 13?
People were excited for this to come back and be in Vegas, and I think people are going to like all the plot twists, so I'm going to go with 85.
You're exactly 10 points off again. 75 is the audience score.
So I was right in the difference, just not in how good.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
What do you think the Metacritic score is for Ocean's 13?
Metacritic score is going to be... I'll drop it, 78.
Still a little high. It's a 62 on Metacritic.
What a spread.
Seems to be the theme of us running these. Alrighty. So, let's close it off with the newest film and presumably last film in the franchise, which is Ocean's 8. Released in 2018, it was directed by Gary Ross and stars Sandra Bullock, Cate Blanchett, and Anne Hathaway. Debbie Ocean.
Cate Blanchett. That's who that was. Goodness gracious.
Wow, all right. Debbie Ocean gathers an all-female crew to attempt an impossible heist at New York City's yearly Met Gala. I will go ahead and go first. I think was this your first time watching it?
Yes, I specifically avoided it at the theaters.
This was my first time watching this as well. And I will say, I'm sad that I didn't see it in theaters. I really enjoyed this movie.
100%. I thought it was a really, really worthy successor.
I do think that because it's a different director, I don't think it's necessarily stylistically consistent with the first three, which is a little bit of a bummer. But
who directed it? Do you know?
Gary Ross directed this one.
Okay.
But I still think it's a fun time, and the change of location is, I think, a really fun one.
Yeah, I think it leads a lot to kind of, I guess, what people probably thought with the first Ocean's or second Ocean's 11. But like, I feel like it pulls back a lot of like the functions, right, of the setting. So the Met Gala, like, I feel like it peeled back the layers, and I found that super interesting because I don't know much about the Met Gala, but I felt like I learned a lot about the function of that whole business and like what goes on. So I thought it was super interesting as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a really cool location too, like visually, is definitely interesting. And going to New York City, I think, was a really big change from, definitely a big change from Vegas. So, but,
yeah, but
we should probably drop a spoiler.
Okay,
We're just gonna dive in. Let's drop a spoiler warning for Ocean's 8. Please continue with your thought, good sir.
Yeah, I just think that New York makes sense without going to like LA for just a big city with a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's kind of a logical one, but I thought the change of pace was really refreshing. I thought it was really nice just to see different things and have the same kind of stakes feeling going on. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, I think fun is the kind of the name of the game with this movie. I think the cast is having a lot of fun. The location is a lot of fun. This, like, the fact that it's very reminiscent of the first movie, right? She's getting revenge on someone at the same time as actually just doing the heist, and the twist at the end is pretty
with the
good.
fake.
No, with the extra.
Yeah. The thing that I thought was most fake about all of this was that she was able to secure a job at, what was it? Vogue, just to gain access to the, like, okay, do you know how many people want to work for Vogue? I just thought that was a bit far-fetched. And I get there was, like, all the
Well, they forged their resume, and they probably made the person sick so they could get the job.
But I still feel like that, to me, like, I don't know. That really, when it happened and then it worked, I was like, okay. Like, they didn't vet any of this, really? Like, not to the extent that they would immediately find out that none of it was real.
Exactly, yeah. But I think it's like because, like, it's the rushing of the time frame, and it's like we just need someone who's overqualified. You know,
Yeah.
Again,
sure.
if that's the only thing that seems illogical in this whole movie, then that's saying something. Because there's illogical things in the rest of the other movies, too. You know, just because it's all women doesn't mean that a whole thing's illogical, internet.
And that's not what I mean by that at all.
I know. I'm making fun of terrible people on the internet. But not that any of them listen to this. But yeah, I mean, I think the cast is a lot of fun. I think there's a couple of weak inclusions.
I'm not sure. I know Rihanna. And, I mean, I know, but I don't know if I know everybody.
So I think Rihanna was a little weak in this movie. She's better than a lot of other movies she was in. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I still think it was like a celebrity ad, though. Like, just someone unique and fun to add to it.
Yeah, and then you know, I've said it on the show several times. I'm not the biggest fan of Awkwafina. I don't necessarily think she was the best inclusion in that role, but.
I think she was just Awkwafina. Like, I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, exactly. I think
go
ahead.
I mean, there were a couple that I didn't. I think two, but who was Tammy? Who's that actress's name?
Tammy is the mother with the garage full of stuff.
Yes.
Oh, now you're gonna make me look.
I didn't write here. I'll look.
I mean, I know all the actresses. I'm just trying to know which character that is.
She's the one that gets the job
at Vogue.
Yeah.
Oh, Sarah Paulson.
Oh, all I could think of was she was from a Scary Movie.
Yeah, she was in a couple of things. She was also in a couple of shows as well. She was in American Horror Story, I think.
No, it wouldn't be that. I only watched the first season of that.
Sarah Paulson. Let me look it up real quick. No, she was on American Horror Story. She was also Nurse Ratched in the TV series. She was in Glass and Bird Box.
Oh, Bird Box, maybe then. I saw Bird Box.
And then, yeah, I mean, a bunch of other movies, but Bird Box is probably the one that you know her from then.
Oh, I know her from 12 Years a Slave.
Oh, that's an interesting one to pull out.
And Serenity. And New Year's Eve. Are you kidding me? You pulled out all the ones that we wouldn't know.
Okay. I try to forget New Year's Eve, so I mean...
I actively tried to not remember that.
I had suppressed that part of my memory until you just said it. And I mean, again, I don't want to spoil any of the plot points. I think there's a couple of twists with characters that I thought I saw coming, then didn't see coming, and then it happens, which is interesting. I mean, that's all I really have to say about the movie. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, a lot of... If you watch these all back to back, like I did relatively quickly, a lot of people. And it's just, the huge cast are super fun. But I will say, by the time that I watched this one, the ensemble cast thing was probably skewing my brain a bit, because it was like I had just seen so many and seen so many faces and so many plots go off so quickly. But I tried not to let it taint my review, so my final thoughts will be clear, I hope, and concise and correct. Sure. But I will say if you do want to go like back to back on all these, it can be a bit rough. I'd suggest spacing them out and let yourself digest each one individually.
Sure, yeah, I totally get that.
And maybe skip Ocean's 11, the first one.
Definitely, yeah. Unless you're a completionist, like we are. But let's dive into final thoughts. I went first this time, so I guess I'll go ahead and go. A strong cast, a unique heist location, and a well-written script provide a fun time, if not always consistent with the rest of the trilogy. And because of that, I did think it was better than 12, not as good as 13, so I gave it a 74.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think this movie's really good. I think it's a great sixer. I didn't think it's necessarily... Definitely not worse than any of them, and as a standalone movie, kind of like what I was giving the other ones, I think it's pretty in line with one in particular, and I gave this movie a 75. I think it's really kind of on par with some of the stuff the original does. It does fall a bit short in the casting, kind of like we talked about, like it's tough to get over some of the people, and it's tough to feel like some of them aren't just hired to make the star-studded cast that the first one had possible. It seems like some people were really reached out to just because they needed another body. And that kind of is a bit odd, but yeah, I think it's really, really good. And I definitely am also bummed I didn't see it in the theater. I think it would have been a really fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's going to be it for Ocean's 8. Let's go ahead and jump into the scores for the movie. I feel like this is going to be an interesting one. What do you think the critic rating for Ocean's 8 is on Rotten Tomatoes?
I will go with... I think I went too high on it. I'm going to go 70.
God, you're close. It is a critic score of 68.
Can I just get one today? Out of how many darts am I throwing here?
Critics have said Ocean's 8 isn't quite as smooth as its predecessors, but still has enough cast, chemistry, and flair to lift the price of a ticket from filmgoers up for an undemanding caper. That was almost hard.
Pretty in line.
What do you think the audience score is for Ocean's 8?
62.
Do you want to guess again?
Am I really off?
You're off.
No, I'll stick with it.
Okay, audience score was a 45.
They didn't like it.
Because most likely a bunch of, asshole audience members.
Sure.
Oh, it's all women. Fuck off.
It did come out, I will say this, it did come out at a time where that was a bit overplayed with like Ghostbusters re-releasing and like people doing the all-female thing just for the sake of it. This doesn't feel like that. This movie feels like it was designed to be a good movie, and it really does feel different than any of those if you're kind of hung up on that.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think the Metacritic score is?
I'm going to go with 78.
Do you want to try again?
No.
Okay, well, it's a 61.
Okay. I don't get to try again.
I'm just I feel like if you're like quite a bit off, I would give you a chance. But 61 on Metacritic. I think it's like I'm looking at some of the audience reviews, and some of them are like, "This is just another Hollywood attempt at, hey, let's take a classic movie and flip the cast's gender. It's pure politically correct propaganda." Fuck off, seriously. Anyhow. Before I get on a soapbox again. Anyhow, that's going to be it for this episode of The Drive Back. Mr. Adrian, if anyone wants to follow us online, see what we're doing, where can they do that?
At The Drive Back Podcast, wherever you want. Any of your podcasting apps, we're there. We post every Monday, as well as on YouTube, where YouTube, we get a bit of extra content. In fact, we just got a video from Garrett doing all of the Disney watch-through films. So we watched all the animated movies of Disney, and he gave them all a rating. Quite a long video, but if you are wondering about any movie in the Disney Animation Studios repertoire, Garrett's got you covered.
Yeah, and try not to hate me too hard with a couple of my picks, but it's all right.
He thinks Peter Pan is bad.
It's because it is. It's not that it's bad. I just do not enjoy that movie.
If you really wanted to clickbait everyone, you should have just put the title of that movie as Peter Pan is a bad movie.
Well, it's not clickbait, because that's something that comes up in the video. It would have been like, Peter Pan is the best movie ever? Anyhow, next week on the show, we have a back-to-back. We're returning to the world of upside-down boats with the original Poseidon Adventure, and we're going to watch the sequel to it, Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. Back when
kind of
sequel
crazy that we
titles
didn't
were bad.
do those all together.
Yeah, I think because I saw that I didn't know that the original had a sequel, and I think that seeing that it had a sequel, I threw it onto the schedule because like we gotta watch both of these because like they're just not going to be the same. Because Beyond the Poseidon Adventure is apparently a terrible movie, so I'm so excited to watch
great.
it. Yeah, so that's gonna be the next episode coming up, and then we will. I'm not gonna hard promise anything right now. Because that would be a fool thing to do and I might end up looking like an idiot. We will probably, we haven't decided yet, vlog our Halloween Horror Nights experience coming up. We are going to be going there in 2 days. Adrian and I will be in the same location at one time. The world's going to come to a standstill.
It's happened before.
But not on camera.
9/11. Oh, sorry.
That's staying in. But we most likely will do a vlog for that with our friend Nadia from her horror channel, Horror and Morer, which we'll link down below. You should check her out. She's awesome. So look forward to that. Again, I'm not going to promise it because we could decide on the day of, I'm just not feeling it. And, not do it, but we'll see.
Best thing you can do with maybes is make sure to shout them out in a video.
Yeah, right? Yeah. We'll want to build, some level of excitement, but not promise too much. Like what the video game industry should do. But anyhow, that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for staying with us the entire time. We love you so much. We will see you next week here on The Drive Back. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drive Back. Make sure to be on the lookout for new episodes every Monday, and make sure to follow us on social media.